Greetings gamers, my name is Anto, and over the last couple of weeks I've been reading a lot of Pathfinder 2nd edition, and today I want to go through and compare and contrast a level 1 fighter in each system. I personally find one of the easiest ways to learn a new system is by creating a character, and I thought it'd be fun to look at one of the most basic versions of a character you can make in either system, a fighter, at level 1 using just the core rulebook or player's handbook options to see how different the characters actually are and what you can do in each. This video is sponsored by SIDEQUEST, my monthly RPG magazine. More on that in a little bit. So I have two different fighters here, one for D&D 5th edition on the right and then Pathfinder 2nd edition on the left. The first thing you're going to notice is the Pathfinder character sheet is much more dense at first look. It's not actually that much more dense, and everything is laid out in, I think, a really intuitive way, but when you first look at it, especially with all of the colour, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So we have Alara, our human fighter here. Both of these are level 1, both of them using just the information in the core book for each system, and both built with the same playstyle in mind. I've chosen to go with a sword and shield, a sword and board, a classic fighter for both options, so we can really see where some of the differences are. Now broadly, these two fighters are very similar. They're going to fulfill a very similar role, and at level 1 there's not going to be a huge difference. Some of the biggest differences that you're going to see is things like hit points. So our 5th edition fighter has got 12 HP. That comes from their class HP as a fighter and then their constitution, whereas our fighter in Pathfinder 2nd edition, you get HP based on your ancestry and your class at level 1, and then as you progress you just get your class HP. So you have a little bit more HP at level 1. You can make yourself a little bit more survivable by combining different classes and ancestries, and it means you're not quite as squishy at first level. So the next difference between them is going to be their armor class. When you look at our 5th edition fighter, they've got an AC of 19. That's coming from their chainmail, their shield, and then their fighting style, which is the armored defense. They end up with an AC of 19 at level 1 versus our fighter from Pathfinder 2nd edition, who only has an AC of 18. Now you can see here that they do have a shield, but the way shields work in Pathfinder 2nd edition is a little bit different. It takes an action to bring that shield to bear to benefit from the AC bonus. So when they are using their shield, when they're actively using their shield, they're going to have an AC of 20. Everything else is broadly the same. Each of them have a longsword, 1d8 damage. Each of them has access to a variety of skills. It isn't until we start looking at some of the ways that the system is different that we see how a fighter in each of these settings is going to perform differently. So I'm going to jump down to the feats down on the Pathfinder 2nd edition sheet so that we can walk through some of the things that the 2nd edition version of the fighter can do a little bit differently. First of all, they get an attack of opportunity. This is a given in 5th edition because everybody gets attack of opportunity, but that's not the case in Pathfinder 2nd edition. In PF2, you only get an attack of opportunity if you have the attack of opportunity feat or feature if you're a monster. This means that no more are you going to be standing around like really locked into like standing in a line, a gridlocked combat, because it's not assumed that everyone has got an attack of opportunity. People can move around a lot more, and that frees up the battlefield to be much more dynamic. Fighters, though, do get the attack of opportunity as standard, which means that they can control their immediate battlefield a little better by preventing people from moving away or performing certain actions. Then you can see that the PF2 fighter has got two different shield-based feats. One of them is coming from their ancestry feat. Now their ancestry feats, things you get just for being a human in this case, and I took a feat that allowed them to choose one of the fighter feats in place of their normal one, and that gave them the reactive shield, which means that they can raise their shield and get the benefit of that +2 to their AC as a reaction. Then in their actual class features, you can see that at first level, because they're a fighter, they get the shield block feat, and that allows them to reduce some incoming damage by the hardness of their shield. In this case 5, because that's the shield that we're carrying here. So when someone does an attack to you, you can use your reaction to block that attack, and then you will get to take 5 off the damage. Any of the remaining damage is split between the shield and you. So if someone does 10 damage to you, you raise your shield, you'll absorb 5 of it, and then the shield takes 5 damage and you take 5 damage as well. And it's a way to keep yourself in a fight a little bit longer. Your shields can break because of this, which is a cool image of throwing your shield in front of like a really strong attack that just shatters it, and it gives you some more options when you're using a shield. And we'll compare that to the 5th edition fighter. They have got a fighting style which lets you choose how you want to be as a fighter. We've chosen the defensive fighting style, which means that when you're wearing armor, you just get a flat +1 to your AC. Mechanically, it means that without having to spend an action, yes, you're a little bit harder to hit in the 5e fighter, but you can't really do anything interesting with that. You can't use your shield in any active ways. It is just there. You're just always getting the benefit from it, but you can't do anything interesting with it. Then when it comes to other features, so the fighter in 5th edition has their second wind ability, which means they can regenerate a little bit of hit points once per short rest. Pathfinder 2nd edition fighter doesn't have anything like that, but I have taken the Die Hard feat, which makes it so that they are harder to kill. Similar to death saves, in PF2 you have a dying system, and when you hit dying 4 you die. I've taken the Die Hard feat, which means that you have to hit dying 5 instead. Just helps keep you in the fight a little bit longer. And then you can see that there's still a couple more feats here on the Pathfinder version of our fighter. We have the Intimidating Glare skill feat. That's come from my background as a warrior, and that allows me to use the Demoralize action, which is a skill-based action that lets you kind of put a debuff on your enemy. That lets me do that with just visuals. We don't need to share a common language between my character and the creature I'm trying to demoralize. And then the last thing that we've got is our first level feat for fighter, which is Sudden Charge. That allows you to move twice and attack as 2 actions instead of 3. It just gives you a bit more maneuverability in the early rounds of combat, helps you get into position really easily. This video is sponsored by SIDEQUEST, my monthly RPG magazine. Every month over on my Patreon, I release a new issue, and every single issue is packed with content for players and for game masters. For players, there's new player options, classes, subclasses, new items for you to discover, new mechanics for you to be able to do new and interesting things in combat. And for game masters, there's things like adventures, new monsters, new alternate rules, and a whole bunch more to help inspire your world. $5 gets you access to the latest digital issue every month, or you can pick up all of the back issues for just $10 a month. I'll leave a link in the description below. It really helps keep the channel up and running and helps me to keep making content. So check out SideQuest down in the link below, but now back to the video. Other than that, just on paper, these two fighters are broadly the same. Where the differences really come into play is when we start to look at advancement. So if I go ahead here and throw open the core rulebook for Pathfinder 2nd edition, we can look and see this fighter advancement table. Now typically with a 5th edition character, once you have chosen your subclass, you don't really make any meaningful choices with most characters after that point. I'm not talking about spells here, I'm talking about specific choices with your character's abilities. Most of them stop at level 3 with the subclass, and then everything you get after that you just receive. You don't get to make a choice in what you do with your character. This is very much different to how Pathfinder 2nd edition works, in as much as in Pathfinder 2nd edition you get a bunch of different stuff. So you can see here in the class features, not only are we going to get access to different set abilities at certain levels, so like bravery at 3rd level for example, or battlefield surveyor at 7th level, but we also get access to a huge number of feat options as we go up levels. So this table on the left here, you can see at level 2 we're choosing a fighter feat, which is our class feat, and a skill feat. Then at level 3 it's a general feat, then fighter feat and skill feat, ancestry feat, fighter feat, skill feat, general feat, and on it goes. By the end of your kind of lifespan as a Pathfinder 2nd edition character, you will make about 30 meaningful choices, so choosing feats or choosing options as you progress, which is way more than you get in 5th edition in terms of choice options. Now the fighter in 5th edition is actually pretty good for choice options because you get a bunch of different options for ability score improvements. I think you get about 5 of them over the course of your character's lifespan, where you get to choose between an ability score improvement or a feat. But feats in 5th edition are optional rules, and a lot of them aren't fantastic. You get a +1 to 1 of your ability scores, and then you get a minor benefit. Some of them are really good, and those ones will almost certainly be taken by default, which means that when you're playing a fighter in 5th edition, there's not going to be a huge amount of difference if you are playing a subclass fighter the same as someone else. If you're both playing a champion, for example, you are both going to look incredibly similar when it gets to level 15. You're going to have very similar options. But when you compare that to Pathfinder 2nd edition, you can see here that every level we have multiple options for meaningful choices from all of our feats. So looking just at the class feats here, you can see at level 1 we've got 7 different options for class feats. At level 2 we've got 7 different options. At level 4, again, we have 2, 4, 6, 8 different options. And as you progress, there's all of these small moments of choice that you're going to have that allow you to build completely different kinds of characters. And that's just with class feats. Then you've got skill feats, which are going to allow you to do interesting things with your skills and skill abilities. You've got general feats, which anyone can access, that are going to allow you to choose a whole bunch of other options. And then you have the archetype system. Now this is the way that Pathfinder handles multi-classing, but it's not just for multi-classing. So at any level where you can take a class feat from 2nd level, so 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, every even level I believe, instead of taking your class feat, you can take an archetype feat. And what this does is it opens a new pathway of feats for you. So as a fighter, I could choose the wrestler archetype. At 2nd level, I take the wrestler dedication. It teaches me some wrestling moves. And then at 4th level, I can choose to either pick something from the fighter class list or from the wrestler list, and it gives me even more options, allows me to get really nuanced and niche with the kind of character that I want to build, or it allows me to multi-class by dipping into some of the, let's say I wanted to be a wizard, a fighter wizard, so I take my fighter as class, and then at 2nd and even levels I could take a feat from the wizard archetype, which would give me access to some basic spellcasting and some of the less powerful elements of a wizard. You're never going to be as powerful a wizard as a multi-class wizard as if you had been a full wizard, but you don't have to split the way that you build your character like you do in 5th edition or in some of the older editions, where you take a whole class level in something, because that really hampers your ability to be able to access some of your higher level stuff. In Pathfinder 2nd edition, if I am a fighter and I get to level 16 and I decide that I want to choose a 16th level fighter feat, that is fine. I don't have to worry about having taken some of these archetype feats, because as long as I meet the other prerequisites for my 16th level feat, I'm never going to miss out on any of the higher level stuff because I've dipped into other things. And for me, that's where the really big difference between these two systems comes in. Broadly, they are mostly the same. They're both D20 based systems, so they play in terms of very core mechanics very similarly. But it's once you start looking at choice and how things progress when you level up, and the way in which you can use the action economy that they really start to pull apart. A first level fighter in 5th edition can attack once, and that is about it. You can move and you can attack. You can take an attack of opportunity if someone moves away from you, but that's about all you're going to be able to do. Whereas in Pathfinder 2nd edition, because you've got the 3 action economy, you could attack 3 times if you wanted to. You would almost certainly miss the 3rd attack, possibly the 2nd, but you'd have the option. But you have so many more opportunities to use those actions to move around and reposition, to use some of your feats, to be able to increase your defenses, to be able to attack multiple times, to use any of the feats that you've gotten from any source to do a bunch of interesting stuff, to use your skills in really unique ways compared to what you can do in 5th edition. In fact, I was playing a game of 5th edition this weekend. I was playing a 7th level barbarian, and I was kind of astonished at how little I could do. I had 2 attacks, but that was about all I could do. I had rage, and I'm a wild magic barbarian, so there's a little bit of spice there, but I really felt hampered by the move action system, because there were plenty of turns where I would have liked to have done more. You know, if I was standing still, maybe do some more interesting stuff and sacrifice some of my movement, or if I needed to get into position, move more than twice. The 3 action economy really opens a lot of doors with being able to use your abilities. I really hope that you found this video useful in kind of seeing what some of the differences between characters in the 2 systems are. I'd really love to know what kind of content that you'd like to see me make for Pathfinder 2nd edition down in the comments. What are you interested in about this system? What would you like to see me cover? Let me know in the comments below. But until next time, happy gaming!